Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. The Knife Raven here, back again with another video. And in today's video, boy am I excited. For today is going to be the first of a little mini-series here on the channel. And I guess that's going to be some new knives. I haven't gotten some new knives in a little bit of time. And I saw some of these at Heine Haynes, and this is my first time buying from them, and so far, customer service is quite good, very fast shipping and everything. Overall, good store. But what knife am I talking about today? Well, I'm going to be talking about a pattern from Arthur Wright & Sons. Now, Arthur Wright & Son is a very well-known, well, at least in the UK knife community, British knife maker in Sheffield, and I've talked about their knives before, not on this channel, but for those of my older viewers, you may recognize my video on this knife, which I still have and love, and sadly the Lambfoot video that I made on the Wright Lambfoot, it encountered some issues. As I've said before, there was a flaw in the design for the left-handed models, and thus the knife broke. But they have since resolved that flaw, apparently. And I've talked about a couple other Wrights since, you know, the Senator, the Lambfoot in Stabilized Spalted Beech. This was a limited Moonraker run from Moonraker Knives, UK. But today, we're talking about this one, and this is the Farmer's Sheepsfoot. And this was a very inexpensive knife. I believe this was 14 GBP, which translates to something like 25 Canadian, I believe. US, it would probably be, 24, 22. But this is a brilliant little knife. Now, this, I would like to specify, is not mine. This was bought for my father, who is also a big traditional knife fan, like myself. And he particularly likes Sheepsfoot blades and wanted a traditional pocket knife such as this, and so he went ahead and bought this one. And I just said before he puts it to use, probably gets a good patina on it, I do a overview of it. So, to start, the handles here are made of a nice rosewood, a lighter grained rosewood at that. You can see the other side, the different grain pattern. We have brass pins and liners here, a C70 spring, nickel silver bolsters, and one flaw that is on this knife is there's a tiny, tiny little scratch. It might bother some people, but doesn't seem to bother my dad. But for those who are looking for perfection, this knife, it's not quite perfect, but it's certainly better rather than worse. There's a nail nick, although the blade can be pinched open. The centering is immaculate. Gapping is virtually non-existent. And transitions are absolutely perfect as well. The grind seems fairly even. The spring tension would be a solid 9, I would say. This is an incredibly strong back spring, as per usual with a Wright. And you can see the profile, almost the shape of a whale. And that would be your Sheepsfoot. Now again, this is the Farmer's Sheepsfoot model, and the rosewood is the cheapest handle material, so this is a very budget-friendly knife. 4-finger grip, very comfortable. Makes for good draw cuts, opening packages and boxes and the such. C70 carbon steel on the blade. Not the greatest steel in the world, but again, I've said it before. These are traditional knives. They aren't supposed to be put through abuse, and they don't need to be manufactured with super steels, especially considering their price. But C70 is absolutely enough to get the job done. See a basic kind of satiny finish on the blade. And it has a different stamp, this one. It says Sheffield Handmade England, but this is an Arthur Wright knife. Transition from the blade to the spring is good. Blade wobble is non-existent. And blade straightness on this one is almost perfect. In fact, I would go the extra mile to say it is. Even from this angle, this is a pretty straight blade. There is a bit of a warp, but it's ever so slight. This one's not as big of a deal. But again, I've seen way, way worse blade warps than this one. So again, this is an incredibly strong spring. It's very, very hard to open and close. This is not for someone who likes a light spring. Trust me on that. The length of the handle here, we'll go in inches, of course, is around 3.5 inches closed. The blade length is UK legal, I know that, but I will double check. So the sharpened length is just under 2.5 inches, and the overall length is about 2 3/4 inches. So there's no way you can measure this to make it a over 3-inch blade. So this is perfectly legal in the UK. The overall length, the camera cuts off, you can't see it, but it is 6.5 inches overall. So very nice size, perfectly good to put in the pocket, toolbox, jacket, whatever. Very nice knife. So I'll do some quick comparisons before giving my final thoughts. Here it is next to, of course, the Senator. It's actually a bit longer than the Senator. Blade length is close. They're actually about the same. Senator is, of course, a Wharncliffe blade, whereas this is a Sheepsfoot. The difference being that the Sheepsfoot doesn't have a pronounced tip, whereas the Wharncliffe does. But both are straight edges. About the same in blade thickness, too. Next up, we have probably the best comparison is with a Sheffield Lambfoot. The handle used is identical, same dimensions for the handle, so they use the same molds presumably to make these, although you can see different handle materials on these knives. And the blades are also identical in length. So these knives are incredibly similar. Same handles, same blades, well, in length, but of course, different finish. This one's got a mirror polish, this one has satin, this is spalted beech, this is rosewood, and this is a Sheepsfoot, whereas this is a Lambfoot. The Lambfoot is a little bit thinner at the front and makes a rather pronounced tip, whereas again, is more of a blunt end for the Sheepsfoot. Also, different stamp on this one. But yeah, very similar. And of course, time to compare it with my absolute favorite Wright knife, the Ettrick pattern, which is a very strange shape. Despite this, it's almost as long as the Farmer's Sheepsfoot. It has a longer handle, although much thinner, and the blade, however, is far shorter and far thinner, also being a Wharncliffe. So yeah, Ettrick. And that is that. This is a very solid knife. This is a knife I would trust with almost any task that a knife can do. Again, the spring is absurdly strong. There's no way this is going to close on you. You have to actually work to push this. Here, watch my finger. Watch the color. I don't know if you can see that, but my finger is turning white. That is a very, very, very strong spring. My goodness. The rumors are absolutely true. By the way, on Arthur Wright knives, their back springs are very, very stiff. So if you don't like a stiff back spring, you probably won't like Arthur Wright knives. But if you are one of us who appreciates a knife with what is almost an extra safety feature without including a lock, then you should appreciate this knife. But again, Arthur Wright gives you options. You can choose a different handle material. You could choose a Lambfoot blade instead of a Sheepsfoot. But yeah, this is just a very inexpensive, beautifully simple, but incredibly functional, and very well made, I should add, a traditional folding knife from Sheffield. I am incredibly impressed. My dad's incredibly impressed, and I hope he enjoys using this in day-to-day life. So, thank you very much for watching. This has been a bit of a quicker video, and this is the first of a few videos that I will be making on some of the new knives I received. I think the next one will be this. Here's a teaser. Let me, if I can just get this knife open. This is the strongest knife I have ever had. The absolute tightest back spring. There's no way I can open this without having to genuinely pull on the blade. This is such a stiff knife, but I love it for it. This is the A. Wright Barlow, and this will be the next video. I know a lot of you in the knife community love Barlows, and this knife has been reviewed countless times by countless other reviewers far better than myself. But I'm going to add my video to the bunch, and I'm going to review this knife for you in my next video. But yes, stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoy it. In the meantime, thank you again very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And by all means, I think Arthur Wright & Son, they're making a comeback. They went from just a year ago to having knives with terrible centering and very offset blades and springs flying out of the knives and breaking in half, to making a knife that is very, very close to, you know, an Ottermesser or perhaps a Case, back when Case were really, really good. Maybe not quite GEC quality yet, but we're getting there. So yeah, Arthur Wright, they're making a comeback. I absolutely, wholeheartedly, and fully recommend them now. Before I had some doubts, but now I think this is where this brand will make a true comeback. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this knife. And this has been the Knife Raven, as always, signing off. Goodbye.